everybody, it's Prophet Fear here, and today I was taking a walk and I saw a video from somebody whose name rhymes with facts. Right? He made a video in response to a bunch of other people who have said some things about his deadlift and the form and how it's going to get him hurt. And I wanted to say today that I don't agree with people when they say that Max is going to probably hurt himself. I don't even think that his rounding and the form that he does is even that risky for him. I think the stupid part is doing it 6 times a week, just doing the same lift, max effort, 6 times a week. I think that's stupid. Yeah, but think about rounding. Many people round their spine, their lower back, right? Including elite powerlifters, right? They round as well. It's not that big of a deal, but here's the thing. The real risk of spinal flexion and getting injuries is doing a weight that is like doing a set that's at your limit and grinding out a rep with form, like going, if you started neutral, right? If you started neutral and you flexed over while you're lifting the weight, like if you're coming off the floor and you turn into a scared cat, you're stiff like this, and then you turn like that. Well, that actually increases your risk of injury, but Max, he kind of stays in the same position, and that's something very interesting too. Apparently, if you can maintain that flex position the same way, that from top to bottom, is actually not that bad. It's not that risky. It's only when you go from a fixed, rigid back to a flexed back while coming up on a maximal effort deadlift, for example. But Max is starting like that, so it's actually not that much of a risk. But I also wanted to give him some advice, because everyone's telling him, oh, you don't lock out, you have lockout weakness, hitching, this and that. Look, I could tell you, Max clearly doesn't know how to, he isn't good with hip flexion and hip extension, and he uses too much degrees of back flexion and back extension to move the weight. I'm not even going to do that. Even though I could tell him, oh, you should start doing hip hinges, learn how to hip hinge correctly. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is give advice. Or I'm just going to give a tip. If you want to improve your deadlift, Max, you should focus on spinal flexion, because people claim that it's so dangerous, but it's not, especially when the load is adequate, right? When the load is adequate, it's totally fine. Alright? They have an exercise for this. It's called a Jefferson Curl. Alright? I'll probably link a video at the end of this video. But
Esto es hiperextensión.
I'll demonstrate it too. So, people are telling Max he needs to stop flexing at his back, right? They keep telling him not to do that. Well, the Jefferson Curl, that's exactly what you have to do. So here's how you start. With a Jefferson Curl, you start in the same position, right, neutral position. And as you come down, instead of using your hips, instead of using hip flexion, hip extension, right, which is how you're supposed to do them, right? Or do deadlifts, right? You're gonna do this. You're gonna use no degrees of hip flexion, hip extension. You're just gonna bend over like that. Now, I would recommend max start with 115 pounds, with 135 pounds. I don't know. I don't care. And do high reps and like get good with it, feel it out, and then start using that as a fluff movement or something to get your deadlift up. Because from what I hear, just from what I hear, you kind of are hitting a wall right now. Maybe exercises like this that address your weaknesses, that address your specific deadlift style, not necessarily the accessories for somebody who wants to improve the standard technique because you do something different. This exercise will probably help you and probably decrease your risk of getting a lower back injury too, because that's also another reason why people do them. So I hope that's been informative in general. I'll probably also link this commentary because in the literature, guys, in the literature, they seem to find that rounding your back or like doing this or bad form, blah blah, isn't an increase, like a major increase risk of injury type thing.
So just to make this practical, just so I like fully understand your position here. So let's say you have a lifter who they're a competitive power lifter, so their deadlift max is obviously very important to them. They currently deadlift with a lot of lumbar flexion, like a ton of lumbar flexion. They've tried lifting with a flatter back. Like there is probably some flexion still going on, but substantially less. And they've tried that before, and they're way weaker. Would you tell that person like, oh, you're stronger deadlifting with a ton of flexion? You know, you're currently asymptomatic deadlifting that way. That's perfectly fine. Have at it. Like, what would your approach to that athlete be?
Let me blow up the internet. I would not alter anything with them.
All right, fair enough.
If they've adapted, and if this is a competitive powerlifter, odds are their training history has a couple of years under it, hopefully, unless they're just a freak of nature and just destroyed shit, year one in. They've probably adapted to those positions, and so it's going to be very difficult when we talk about it, especially like barbell medicine. My kind of qualifiers for movement are: can you subjectively and comfortably find a position that objectively allows you to accomplish the task? And so for the deadlift, subjectively and comfortably find a position that lets you lift the greatest load. Now, are there some performance cues that we can give that meet the criteria of objectively lifting the greatest load? Probably, but that's going to be individualistic to you. And so if you've been training that way, you're adapting to that way. And I don't have any evidence to come in and say that this is going to be a net negative for you, prognostically speaking, in the future. So there's no need for me to alter that. And this even gets really, really bad if we come in and say shit like, well, your lumbar spine's flexing, you're going to have pain down the road. I'm setting up a negative expectation. I've noceboed you, right? And that's what we really want to watch out from doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers everything we wanted to ask.
One last thing.
Scratch that.
Fuck
Christ.
There's two hosts. Now we've talked about some things that you wanted to kind of expand on, things we've said in previous podcasts. Now, in a previous podcast, we talked a little bit about applied kinesiology, kind of trying to make sure you leverage the energy from mineral
type thing. It's mostly overuse, but Max does 6 max effort deadlifts 6 times a week or something. That's what I hear. Yeah, that's probably an increased risk of injury, though. I'm not going to agree with that. I'm not going to defend that, but that's all I have time to say for today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.